A week ago, I was sitting next to Von Miller in our nation's capital. He predicted a Commanders win. He was wrong. The Broncos won their ninth straight, and Chris Harris and I will talk about it and look ahead to the Raiders game as Football Fridays starts now. Chris, you got to appreciate our guy David, who runs the show for us, going back and pulling the clip of our predictions where you and I both went out on a limb and picked the Broncos, and then Vaughn, who told us, hey, if it goes that way, fine, but I'm competitive and I'm picking the Commanders. And I know this as the game got close and they force overtime, and then in overtime they're driving down. You're like, they're going to go for two. It's like Vaughn may end up being right, and Chris and I may end up with egg on their face. What'd you think about the big Sunday night game?
Man, that's how games are. You know, you play Sunday night football. The other team's going to bring their best shot, especially with a team that's streaking right now. And the Washington, they had a great effort. And, you know, it was a great game, man. It was an exciting game. Going to overtime and Benito closing in on the defensive side, just like they've been winning all season, man. So it was a great game. Von almost proved us wrong. But, you know, I think our predictions was right in that fourth quarter. In that overtime, Bo Nix definitely had an amazing drive to seal the game.
Yeah, and before we're gonna hear from Sean, we're gonna hear from Bo and a couple other their teammates, and hear from Vance Joseph as well. I've been asked, you know, when I was on Fox 31 and Channel 2, and then talking with I talked to JT the Brick in Vegas and talked to some other folks about why the Broncos need to play well against the Raiders, because we think they're going to win barring a catastrophe. And tell me if you agree with this, but I think it's just because we've seen now back-to-back Bo Nix's best two games in terms of linking games together. And so I think them playing well is just about the momentum. It's not about, oh, they need to win 30-15 or 30-12 to calm people down that are all about the Patriots or other teams or think the Broncos are frauds. But where do you come down on the notion that it's not about style points for the sake of style points, but it's about that offense starting to, or continuing, I guess, to click, at least from where Bo's standing?
Well, I think people underestimate how hard it is to win in the NFL. When you come in this league, every game is hard. Every week is a challenge. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. And sometimes people expect to be all blowouts like it is in college, where the talent drop off is noticeable, but it's not really like that in the NFL. Everybody has playmakers. Somebody on that team is getting $100 million. He's getting paid to make plays. And so not every game is going to be a blowout. So you got to learn how to win these tight games. These are how the games are going to be in the playoffs. And the Broncos are very accustomed to closing out games in the fourth quarter. And you're going to have to do that in the playoffs, and especially, you know, December, January, when it gets cold, when that weather changes.
What's kind of your biggest takeaway from that game? Because, you know, it was also asked about, I guess this was on Monday, about the Commanders and how they play. And I was like, look, that's not your normal 3-win team. They were in the NFC title game a year ago. They had just got McLaurin back. We know Daniels is coming. Dan Quinn didn't just become a bad coach. And so you're obviously going to get their best shot, like you said, on Sunday night. But regardless, the Broncos pulled it out. So what are kind of your one or two big takeaways?
Yeah, of course, you know, Washington's going to give us their best effort. Mariota, he's trying to prove that he deserves to get a chance to start or, you know, continue to stay as a backup in this league. And he came out and played very solid. You know, he gave our defense a challenge. Terry McLaurin coming back, Debo, they got skilled players. So they, like you said, this is a different team. You know, a lot of just by not having their quarterback is the reason why they're not in that playoff race. So they're a good, solid team. And one thing that stuck out for me was just Bo making plays with his legs, being able to have another game throwing over 300 yards. We still need some more consistency with Harvey, but I'm thinking I'm liking the way he's playing, and I like the way the O-line is playing. So offensively, there's things that we can fix if we start hitting a couple of these deep balls, and you know, catch the ball a little bit better. There's a lot of plays out there that we left.
And so when you look at it, you still know there's room to grow. And I think that's got to be every week we kind of have this conversation. But the encouraging thing is that they still haven't really hit their stride offensively. I guess let me ask you this too before we start listening to a little bit from Sean and the players and BJ is when you look at the run game and what it is now, we don't know what Dobbins' return will look like. Hopefully, if they end up as a 1 seed, that gives them obviously not even having to worry about a game until the second week of the playoffs. You're talking about January 19th, 20th, somewhere in there where he would hit the field if his foot recovers in time. But what do you think of kind of the evolution of RJ Harvey, who has 8 touchdowns, which leads all rookies?
Well, we didn't run the ball for very much. Which when you play at Washington, they got Bobby Wagner, they got a solid D line. You're gonna have to throw the football against that team. And but we do when we get down as we get close to the playoffs and things, we do need to establish a run game. We got losing Dobbins was huge. We need the younger guys to step up. It's going to be, it's really Harvey's going to have to carry a lot of the load. But that's my major issue on the offense is having the consistency in the run game now, and to be able to help Bo Nix out. And as it gets harder and harder and facing tougher and tougher defenses, he's gonna need that run game. As still being a young quarterback. So that would be my only issue and question mark that we got to get solved going into the playoffs.
Yeah, and it does feel like they are trending in the right direction in terms of cleaning up their penalties, which were kind of the other biggest issue. It was putting them behind the sticks on those early downs. And I know that it's gone down the last couple of games against the Chiefs and then obviously against the Commanders. So fingers crossed, I guess that becomes what you expect because the Broncos aren't usually, unlike the Raiders, an often penalized team. Certainly historically, none of the teams you played on really were. And neither really are Sean Payton teams. That's what made this kind of uncharacteristic. But speaking of Sean Payton, It's kind of set off a topic around Denver because he said something we've heard lots of people say. I think Peyton Manning might have said this. I think we know Michael Jordan said this, if I'm not mistaken. But this is Sean Payton, and we kind of paraphrase with what he's saying, but talking about winning and losing.
Mm-hmm. I think, I don't know. I just think I hate losing more than anything like in the world. And so I think fear of failure is a very significant motivating factor. And so I think from a detail standpoint and there's nothing that's too small that's not significant that has to exist outside the lines as well. The entryway, the locker room, the signage, post-game, and everything we do, there's been thought given to like all of it. And so almost maniacal with the details. And I just think that I think eventually the feeling of the player feeling like they thought of everything.
So let me ask you, because you played for Sean in your final season. You played for Brandon Staley both years you were in LA. Is that right?
One Coach said Anthony Lynn and Coach Staley.
Lynn.
Yeah, we had I had missed Sean for a year. I had DA, Dennis Allen.
Oh, you had DA. Okay.
Yeah.
But I got to think his fingerprints were still around. I was going to ask you though. So you had DA, and then you had Coobs and Foxy, obviously.
And VJ.
And Vic. Okay, sorry.
And Fangio.
You don't have to break down who was the most, detail oriented, but how different was it when you would go building to building or have coaches come in, and you were here longer than they were, and even, go from Foxy, who got you to a Super Bowl, had been to a Super Bowl before, and Coobs, who had won a Super Bowl here with Mike, but just in general, the difference with the head coaches and the attention to detail, how noticeable was that as a player, and how long did it take until it became where they didn't have to talk to you about it? You were already good on the details. And I say you, I mean the group of players, not you specifically.
Right. I would say they were all special at their own way, right? Foxy and his system with DA were very detailed, but he was definitely a player's coach. Then moving on to Kubiak. Kubiak was even more detailed, when it comes to bringing the defensive coaches, Wade Phillips, Joe Woods. At all my coaches, that was the best group by far when it comes to getting us prepared and breaking down on defense and just getting us knowing everything that's going to happen in the game. Fangio now, he was probably one of the greatest coaches of the D line that I ever learned. just learning fronts, learning run gaps, learning how to, different fronts and schemes. I learned a lot from Fangio. In that 1 year, in his system, because Staley pretty much tried to copy his system pretty much, and pretty much uses his system. So playing for him was pretty easy. But I would say Fangio and Wade, just learning their defense to the details. They're such great coaches, especially Fangio, when it comes to that D line. The details matter, man, and that's what makes you separate. That's why he's still in the league. That's why he's been a D coordinator for so long. He might not have been the best head coach, but when it comes to defense, man, that guy knows everything, especially in that front.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if Vance Joseph ends up getting a head coaching job, how much he has picked up from being around Sean Payton, who we know learned the most of what he learned from maybe the master of all details in Bill Parcells. And Parcells, obviously, with that trickle down to Belichick as well. Sean was asked about Belichick being a Hall of Fame finalist and said that he was lucky that when, he got to the league, and obviously they had the Parcells tie, but as the head coach, they were at the Pro Bowl together in 2006. And so you think about guys, when you think about details, you certainly think about in detail-oriented guys. Sean, cut from that same cloth, isn't going to leave any stone unturned. And you mentioned Coobs and Wade. They obviously have been around Mike, and I don't think Mike Shanahan or Kyle Shanahan, we see that from his dad, leave a lot to be uncovered that isn't dealt with or addressed. But let me ask you, because he kind of started with about how much he hates losing. So then Bo Nix and Court and these guys were asked, do you hate losing more than you like winning? So I'm just going to ask you, how are you wired? Were you wired to hate losing more than you liked winning?
That's how I made it. That's how I made it in the NFL this long, is my competitive nature, hating to lose, willing to fight you every down to win. And I just had a bigger will to win than a lot of other guys. Being my size, being 5'10", 190, not having the same athletic ability as everybody else, but having that dog to not want to lose. And with that, when you got a coach that's all used to winning, right? Sean Payton is a winner. So he's going to do whatever it takes to be able to get that every week. And now he's embraced that same mentality to this team. And now they know how to win these tight games. They know how to win now. So they flipped that switch in the organization. And that's just because of Sean Payton. He's a winner. He has that winning mentality, and he's going to do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, and that's where Bo said he and Sean are kind of kindred spirits. He said every coach that he's had has been very detail-oriented, probably going back to his dad in high school, who obviously has won a lot of state championships down there in Alabama, and then through college and getting to play, especially with Dan Lanning at Oregon. You see how well the Ducks have played since he's arrived in Eugene. And now obviously being around Sean Payton, the only NFL coach he knows. And so the details, and then also the hating to lose more than necessarily wanting to win, but the feeling of losing. But so then I asked Bo, because he told us a couple weeks ago that he has stopped looking at his social media during the season, or stopped posting. There's a random partnership post or something. I'm like, for guys on social media, you just had an Instagram with a bunch of posts, but okay. I know people have teams that work for them. But I asked just how much is he paying attention to the standings and the conversation about who's in first place. Here was that.
So you referenced the run you're about to go on. How much during this are you going to, or do you pay attention to what's going on around the league, other teams' records, where you're seeding, you, all that?
And only one time I pay attention is when other people tell me, or if we talk about it amongst the team, or if I hear it from one of you guys. But I'm not. It honestly doesn't really matter, because we're in a great spot ourselves. So if we just keep winning football games, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Chris. If they beat the Raiders, they will then be ahead of the Patriots no matter what in common opponents. And it goes all the way back to week 1 when the Raiders, I think, went to New England and stole that first win, only one of 2 that the Raiders have. So if the Broncos and the Bills, or I'm sorry, and the Pats finish, because I know they still play the Bills, finish with the same record, whether that's 15-2 or 14-3 or whatever it is, the Broncos have that tiebreaker if they beat the Raiders.
Yeah, and that's big. So all the Broncos have to do is just do their job, close out the season strong, You wanna have some things fixed before you get into the playoffs. And now it's just handling business. Like Bo Nix said, we don't need to pay attention to the standings because we know where we're at. So now, being in the driver's seat, now we just need to handle our business every week, keep stacking wins, and make sure that we're healthy and ready to go for the playoffs.
Well, and I even referenced you on TV today and Shelby, guys who I thought would certainly succeed in this side of the business, and you're always great on camera and on the microphone in an interview setting throughout your career, which is why you won the Darren Williams Good Guy Award so many times. But you guys are sports fans. You can tell by the way you do interact on Twitter during the season all year long. Shelby, who's still a player, is still reacting to whatever's going on. But I'm curious, when you were a player, especially 2011 was its own thing with the run with Tebow. But once Peyton got here, especially, how much were you watching the standings in the final month of the season and looking, okay, this is probably who we're going to play, or we need to finish here if we want home field or this and that?
Well, me, I'm watching standings, stats, everything all year long, with me. So just trying to figure out, who we would play and looking ahead. Yeah, I was guilty of that for sure. I definitely did that. So I wanted to see who I would play, the receivers that I could be possibly matching up with, preparing, knowing that we're probably going to have to see Tom Brady, right? But when are we going to see him, So, I was definitely guilty of that. So as a quarterback, as a young guy as Bo Nix, he needs to take it small steps like he's doing. And I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, and also when you're a quarterback specifically, you're going to play whoever you're going to play, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to be guarding this guy or, so it's not going to be a one-on-one matchup. So he'll just stick with getting his game plan dialed in. So on the other side of the ball, BJ was asked because of the development of these corners. So obviously we know what PS2 is, but Riley, a third rounder, Jaquan, obviously undrafted, and then Chris Abrams-Rain, I believe, a fifth rounder. This was VJ talking about cornerbacks and how important it is obviously to have a stable of them.
I think you're drafting two different type of players. Like you draft in outside corners, Riley Moss and Abrams-Rain. You want a certain height and length and long speed, movement traits. Absolutely, ball skills, those things. With Jade and J-Mac, nickel type of guys, smart guys with great foot quickness, ball skills, toughness, high football IQ. So I think when you're drafting defensive backs, it's totally separate from corners to nickels to safeties, and we've drafted well over the last 2 years with corners, and they're all growing and all playing well for us. But it's a premium to have corners and rushers, with our defense and how we play. If we can't rush and cover, we can't play this defense. So drafting one every year, for me, is always premium.
That's something Vic Fangio would talk about too. He's like, you need at least 3 good corners. There aren't 96 good corners in the league. The Broncos have 4 or 5 maybe. When you look at Abrams-Rain plus Jade as a first rounder. But if you're running a team or you're a defensive coordinator, defensive coach, are you banging the table for a corner every year in the draft? If there's one that obviously fits on your draft board in that range of, whichever round it is.
Yeah. Especially if we're going to, play this type of man scheme, blitz, be aggressive style like Vance Joseph is, especially in this system. Luckily, I don't think they have to draft one next year. I think all their guys should be coming back, unless they don't want any one of those guys. But I think they're pretty happy with all the guys in the building. So next year you might not have to do it, but it is a premium. And like he said, they're all different defensive backs. Luckily, with me and Talib, we're different type of corners. But, they would label me as just a nickel, but I could play outside also. So you're going to have some nickel backs that can play outside and inside, and you're going to have just some corners that can just play outside. So like you said, is find that skill set to fit around your defense. You need guys all over the field that can be multi-positional, and that's what you have when you got a J-Mac, you got a Jade Barron. Those are multi-positional players, and which that makes your defense more versatile.
Yeah, and we've heard them tell us that they could see Riley Moss inside. Sean said it on the record that if they needed to, or if they decide to go that way, let's say J-Mac goes down and maybe even Barron's on a bit, you're playing Abrams-Rain outside and you're putting Riley inside if you need to. You hope you don't need to, but you got that versatility. And Pat, we know, he can play wherever he wants and he'll follow guys and he can line up inside. But yeah, you know that you can't have enough corners. It'll be interesting to see if VJ gets a head job, if he tries to give J-Mac some sort of deal to bring him over or make a trade for Chris Abrams-Drain potentially. It'll just be something to keep an eye on. Final thing from the podium, and this is one that I know that you appreciate as somebody who had your own foundation and a former teammate of yours who he mentioned you yesterday by name. But for the second time in 3 years, the Broncos have named Garrett Bowles as their Walter Payton Man of the Year. And obviously now each of the 32 teams sends that guy to the side of the Super Bowl, and then they always pick a winner. I don't think Garrett's going to win and that was kind of one of the things I asked. We don't really know what the criteria is, but just how prestigious is it to see anyone get it? And when you would see your teammates that were nominated, but then also now to see a guy that you obviously were close with, and he would show up at your events and took a page from your book with the way he's handling his charitable work.
Yeah. What can you tell us about last time when you had to go a couple of years ago, what you learned about the award, I guess the process with which they select to the overall winner?
Obviously I have no pull into who wins or who's that. I think everyone's deserving of what it is, but obviously being there, being at the Super Bowl in Las Vegas and getting to do all the amazing things, all the different community works that they have, all the different, gigs that you do throughout the week, and then obviously going to NFL honors and walking the red carpet with my wife and being there to represent the Broncos organization was amazing, a dream come true. So just grateful to be a part of it again. Obviously, I got to know the Payton family and get to know who they are and the kids and get to speak to them, and then, how amazing and truly blessing they are, and then, all the people nationwide and the love and support that they do to present this award. It's definitely, one of those awards that is amazing. It really is. It just speaks to the volume of what type of person Walter Payton was. And, obviously he was an amazing football player, but even an amazing person, and all the amazing things he did, where he's from, coming from an HBCU college, and then become one of the best running backs to ever play the game. So to be honored for that and to be a part of that and their family is truly awesome.
Yeah, I think it's huge. Shout out to Bowles being able to get that. Just shows his impact on the community. Then also, and in that locker room. So I don't know. It's always a Denver bias. We seem to never win these national awards.
John Elway won it.
Well, that's Elway. He's probably the only guy that's probably won it from Denver. But just salute to all the guys that's probably been nominated. My vet guy was Woodyard, learning from Wood. Those guys, Doc, Champ, but Wesley was definitely a major in the community when I first got there. So,
now the winners, and we've seen Denver's own Calais Campbell win it a couple of years ago, but it's guys that have Pro Bowls. It's big name guys. If I just went through it real quick, Eric Armstead, last year's Pro Bowl guy, not a perennial, but Cam Hayward, probably a Hall of Famer. Dak, Andrew Whitworth played forever, won a Super Bowl. Russ, Calais, I mentioned Chris Long. J.J. Watt will raise $30 million for hurricane relief. That was an easy one. But otherwise, how do you decide, Garrett Bowles' charity is good, but Travis Kelce's better? Now, I will say this. If you want Taylor Swift to show up at NFL honors, you make sure Travis Kelce is the Chiefs nominee, which he is. So I'm sure he's doing great work there in the community. All right, let's do this, though, because we're going to go behind enemy lines in a few minutes. Let's jump into the film room, though, and look at a couple things the Broncos did well and didn't do well, as we do every week. It is the Chris Harris Jr. Film Room. All right, we got 5 plays for you this week, and we're going to go in chronological order. So first one, he's been dogged plenty. We talked about him, but Riley Moss in coverage.
Right, go ball, man. That's a great play right there. Being able to make him see through his hands, fight through his hands, one-on-one. You can clearly see there in man coverage, and he's going to have to win on top. And I think he did a great job of being able to widen the receiver. I wish he could have got better hands on him on the line. But, he did a great job being able to improve himself from the week before down the field, being able to get his eyes back and be able to make a play on the ball. So that's a good play by Riley Moss right there.
It happened a couple of times, and it's probably going to keep happening until it doesn't. But Riley definitely has to look at the refs, and it's almost like, you don't want to make eye contact, but he's just looking around to make sure, okay, I'm doing things right. Are you going to throw a flag anyway? And he did it a few times, but he wasn't flagged for any PIs the other day. So that's obviously a good
My
thing.
tip to Moss would be to line up a little bit more shade to the outside
Outside.
so it can widen them a little bit more. And just because he's getting so many fades, right? Let's make these teams beat you another way.
Yeah, or put it in the very perfect spot where there's
Right.
nothing you can do. But yeah, you use your sideline more as your friend. Well, so speaking of putting a ball in a very perfect spot, we know that Odell Beckham has ruined football for so many young kids that once they see one-handed catches, but clearly Treylon Burks was keeping an eye on how to do that. How about this catch? And what do you do differently in coverage?
I mean, there's nothing he can do. That was perfect coverage. That's just the guy going up there. He's more athletic, going up there to make a play. And that can happen in the NFL, guys. Like, you can get beat. Some guys just are able to make a play. And that got to be the catch of the year so far, right? Him being able to snag that and be able to score, that's a huge touchdown. So right there, I couldn't, it's hard to coach up Riley Moss on that. I think he did a solid job. He was in great position. It's just good throw, good catch.
Kind of like the Keenan Allen touchdown earlier in the year. You're right there. It misses your finger by this much. And like they always say, these guys get paid too. Obviously, Treylon Burks, former first rounder, hasn't necessarily had the best start to his career, but maybe it gets revitalized there after plays like that. All right, just a couple more. You talk about what you're able to do defensively and have good hands. We saw Riley Moss do that. But, hey, linebackers can get in on the mix as well. Let's keep an eye on Alex Singleton.
Yes, sir. Right there, we see they're in a cover 2. So Singleton has to run the pipe down the middle. And he does a great job being able to play the ball through his hands. If you're trailing, for all my defensive backs, linebackers, always try to play those hands. Singleton did a great job of being able to run. He really made his job a little harder. He should have opened up much earlier. But, he was still able to make that play. I would tell him to open up right now. Right? He opened up a little bit late, but it didn't hurt him. But a better, faster tight end, better quarterback, that's a completion, right? The receiver and your safeties are way outside the hash. That's a completion in the NFL with a good, fast tight end, a great quarterback. So I would tell Singleton to open up just a little bit earlier, and because you got to understand your safeties are getting very wide in this cover too.
Yeah, you talk about a better tight end. Gino, I don't think is a better quarterback than Marcus Mariota right now, but I do think Brock Bowers is a better tight end than Zach Ertz. So if he ends up in that situation this week, Brock's probably snatching that and picking up 30, 40 yards there. All right, 2 more, and they're in the same part of the game. We're in overtime now. Broncos fans a little nervous. Look at PS2 and coverage on the bottom on McLaurin.
Right. Yep, pick route. So what we would do in that formation, number 1 is off. So with number 1 being off, we need PS2 to get up and press. Right. And then we need and Debo's on the point. So me as a nickel, I would get off. I would say Talib or Roby, get up, and they would be able to slide right through. So that's just alignment adjustment that they would have to make. When you see this type of formation with the flipped alignment, the receiver, number 1 receiver that PS2 is guarding is off. PS2 needs to get up so he can get through that pick, and J-Mac get off. So it's just alignment issues, in which I'm pretty sure VJ will go back in the lab and tell them what they need to do on that, and they'll be able to clean that up, because that is a route they'll see every week in the red zone.
It feels like Pat misses your number 1 rule that you were telling us about Riley Moss a couple weeks ago when you're down there on the 1-2 yard line. Where do you put your feet if you're the corner?
Right here, we have the ball on the 4 yard line.
Yeah.
So he needs to be on at least the 2 if he is off. So he's already, picked himself. He's in the end zone. He backs up, even puts himself another yard in the end zone. And I'm pretty sure he's going to make that adjustment. And that pick route is damn near legal because he's so far off.
He doesn't. Right. There's not any egregious attempt by Debo to make contact. I think it's kind of the perfect way to execute it on offense, and you get helped by where Pat lined up.
Right, because we used to get this play with Phillip Rivers, Keenan Allen. Right, he used to try to do that one step, boom, try to go in. So, you got to be ready for this. Tyreek Hill 1 year beat us on this. He got inside of Roby one time. I think that was with Vance Joseph. So this same play, I think we lost in overtime versus the Chiefs. This same play, Tyreek Hill got under us. We didn't, follow our rules on that. but it's something that you're going to see a lot in the red zone, especially within the 5-yard radius.
All right, and then the final play before we go behind enemy lines was the final play. And this is a 2-point conversion attempt,
Right.
I guess.
And we show man because we show Singleton matching up with the running back out wide. They motion him back in. They had us. They had a great play, but Benito was able to come unblocked, in which this play is. I think they usually do let one guy go. So that is the design of the play. Benito just did a great job of being able to time it early. He almost wanted to jump a little bit early, but he was able to time it perfect, make a play, and that's a touchdown, though. That's a touchdown right there. So it's going to be something that they're going to see next week. We know that with Vance Joseph, or that's Hufanga has to get through the traffic. So they're going to see that, especially when they play the Chiefs again. That's their staple. They run this play all the time. So they'll have to be. It's something that they'll be ready for next time.
Two things about this play. I'm not 100% sure this pass gets there. It almost feels like he doesn't put enough on it. Maybe it would have. Because the running back is definitely open. There's no doubt there. Yeah. But look at as the ball comes out of his hands. Are we sure that ball's getting there?
Yeah, I think it gets there.
All right. Sure. And then I asked Sean because they took the time out there because he wanted to get a look. They took the time out, and then he said that they changed up their play a little bit. When I said that to Alex Singleton in the locker room, he's like, we didn't change anything. I'm like, well, your head coach said, he's like, oh yeah, then we did. But when your free runner is one of the best pass rushers in the league, I think you'll take that every time. Now they have a great, obviously, group of rushers, but if it's that guy, you like that matchup. I mean, you would like to Coop too, but you'll take that all day. All right, that was our trip this week inside the film room. And we're not going to waste any time now because we're going to let's do like we do every week. Also, we're going to go. It's not the same as having a player next to us like last week. That's pretty unique with Vaughn, but let's go behind enemy lines. All right, let's welcome to the show my guy, Vinny Bonsignore, from the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Raider Nation Radio. Nice enough to join us from the I think that's the Raiders studio where he is. You can tell that's how much the Raiders pay attention. They're like, this is our studio. It's tables on the wall. But I know Vinny's at the facility there in Vegas. So let's start, Vinny, though, real quick with a 2-10 team and Pete Carroll coming in and Tom Brady more involved and Genty and all that. How disappointing is this season for the Raiders as they're back to the drawing board?
Extremely disappointing. And look, Pete Carroll wasn't brought in here to win championships this year or next year. He was brought in here to basically raise the floor over these next couple of years and then hand it off to somebody else. Once he left, he's 74 years old. He's got a 3-year contract. This wasn't really a long range thing. It was more of a lift the floor type of a thing. And that just hasn't happened. Geno Smith hasn't helped lift the floor. Pete Carroll hasn't helped lift the floor. There were some estimations on the offensive line and some other positional groups that's led them to this 2-10 record. And I don't know about you guys, but everyone around here is watching Ty Simpson at Alabama and Fernando Mendoza at Ohio State tomorrow. That's where everybody's focus is and kind of has to be at this point at 2-10. There's nothing really to play for. It's about trying to find the quarterback of the future. And so this next month, for the Raiders, above and beyond what happens Sunday and next week and the week after that and the week after that, it's about who's the next quarterback that might be out there that the Raiders might be able to draft, because it feels like for the first time in a long time, they're going to be in a position to draft one of the top quarterbacks in the draft.
Yeah, and we heard – oh, sorry, Chris, I know you got a question. We can get back to quarterbacks. Chris, jump in.
Yeah, sir, with that O-line, I see that's the major issue on this team. Genty's getting hit in the backfield. Before he can even get a positive run. Do you see that as a major issue, especially coming into this game? But as I would put that right there as equal as the quarterbacks.
If there's more than 1,000%, and I'm not a really good mathematician, so I don't know, but 1,000%, you're correct. This has been a failure at the offensive line. And I know Geno Smith gets a lot of blame. Quarterbacks always do. It kind of comes with the position. He didn't help himself with what happened with some of the fans, coming off the field the other day, giving him the finger. So there's a lot of lost faith in him from the fan base. But when you really drill down to it, he's had no chance behind this offensive line. He just hasn't. 23 sacks over the last 3 games. Guys are in his lap. He can't even set up basically, a large percentage of the time. So, but he's going to get the blame. He understands that he's the quarterback and he shoulders that. But the real issue has been the offensive line. Ashton Genty is a really good running back. You can't get him going because the offensive line isn't opening up holes. Brock Bowers is one of the premier talents in the NFL, and he's not able to get going because there's not enough time for the quarterback to get him the ball quite often. So yes, you're right. It's more than anything, it's the failures of the offensive line that is really stymied this offense, and Geno Smith in particular.
Well, and so going to failures, I was going to ask about quarterbacks, but we'll worry about that come draft time. Chip Kelly gets fired.
No, we're worried about it right now.
Sure.
That's what we're talking about right now, but go ahead.
Raiders
I'm kidding.
fans and people who cover the team, I get it. You're worried about it now, and these championship games matter. And we thought it was going to be a better quarterback class, or maybe just a different quarterback class with what we thought we'd see from March Manning, who doesn't look like he's coming out, or Nussmeier at LSU. But there's some players. We think Mendoza probably does end up going 1, or Ty Simpson. But back to the coaching thing. So Chip Kelly gets fired. Special teams coach is fired. Does Pete Carroll keep his job, or are we looking at a scenario potentially? We talked about raising that floor where Mark Davis, whose team is now worth $707 billion, I'm sorry, the valuation, is paying 5 head coaches next year. Assuming they're still paying Gruden. I don't know if they are, or at least 4 head coaches because the new guy plus Pete plus Josh plus Pierce.
Yeah, and that's an issue. Obviously, I've talked to Mark Davis about it. He's never afraid to rip off the Band-Aid in there, and you might as well say a $250 billion, because they're just printing money out here in Las Vegas. It's kind of why they looked at this market and this stadium as their future. They're in great position in terms of all that, and they could absorb another payout to another coach. And no, there is no guarantee that Pete Carroll is back. And look, Pete Carroll hasn't forgotten how to coach. It's not about that. I think the bigger issue right now would be the timelines. He wants to win right now, or as much as possible right now. And this team just really isn't built for that. There's a process that's involved. It's going to take a couple of years. It's going to take a couple of great drafts, great off seasons, great decisions, the development of young players. And I'm not quite sure that fits what Pete Carroll, wants to do right now at his age, and rightfully so for him. So I think at the end of the year, there's going to be some cold, hard discussions and talks, and a lot of frank conversations about, are we unified in the vision of where this organization is, what needs to happen, and is everybody on board with the steps that need to be taken? And so I'm not 100% sure, and I'm probably way less than 100% sure that fits with kind of where Pete Carroll is right now. And so for those reasons, I think there very well could be a parting of the ways, and the Raiders go get a young coach that they can grow with, and this team can grow with. If they are in position to draft a Dante Moore or Fernando Mendoza or a Ty Simpson, that'll be a very attractive piece to attract a good young offensive-minded head coach, and they all kind of grow together, and this team grows together. So to answer your question, no, there is no guarantee at all that Pete Carroll is back next year.
Right. I would definitely go with a younger offensive mind coach, especially if we're thinking about drafting a quarterback. But, is being in Las Vegas, right, it should be a easy pitching point to be able to bring free agents, right? It has to start with the free agents, being able to bring guys that can fit the team, fit this mode and culture that we want to have, or that you want to have in Las Vegas. And what was the D tackle's name that y'all paid? That
Christian Wilkins.
Yeah, Christian Wilkins.
That's an example, right? He was a baller in Miami, but you bring him over, but it just didn't work out.
He played 5 games. He played 5 games before getting hurt. Just Raiders luck right there. Yeah, absolutely. No, there's no question about it.
Yeah, they have
huge
to do
loss, by the way. Huge loss.
Yeah, they have to do a great job of being able to pitch that the opportunities that you have in Las Vegas, also with with the free agents. So how do you think they're going to try to change the evaluation, or how they're going to try to pitch this to bring, more veteran guys over there to speed this process up?
Yeah, I think it goes right back to the offensive line. And fortunately for them, at least the way it's sort of shaping up right now, a lot of things can happen between now and March. And, players can get locked up by the teams that they're currently with that are projected to be free agents. But it feels like there's a chance that there's going to be some multiple options along the offensive line. And the debate is always, do you draft your quarterback first or do you build the offensive line? And, and we could always talk about that. But you look at the New England Patriots and the Chicago Bears, they drafted their quarterbacks of the future without great offensive lines. In fact, their offensive lines were terrible their rookie years, and it kind of held them back. And there were questions about Caleb Williams. There were some questions about Drake May. Well, what happened in the next offseason after they found their quarterbacks? They went and invested heavily in the draft and free agency, and in some cases trades in both of those locations to now build an offensive line to help support their young quarterbacks. And lo and behold, the Patriots and the Bears are sitting at top their conferences. So you can do one. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be in the perfect order. So for the Raiders, you go draft your quarterback if they are in a position to do that, but they have to invest heavily in the offensive line. And Chris, I would say that it's probably more conducive for them to do it in a veteran way. Go get some established offensive line that can inject immediate help rather than an offensive lineman, which they have. They've drafted four offensive linemen within the first 3 rounds over the last 2 drafts, and those are prospects that they like. But in each case, there was a developmental phase, and there's still no guarantee that any of those guys turn out to be good NFL players. So go into free agency to get your offensive line to support whoever's the quarterback next year or moving forward, whether that's Geno Smith or a rookie or kind of a combination of both. But yeah, the free agency is where they need to go to help that offensive line.
All right, Vinny, on your way out the door, then. Well, I guess what do we think is going to go on with Max Crosby? Was that just precautionary? Is he trending in the wrong direction? But how do you see it playing out? Because we know when these teams get together, it's always close. We know there'll be a lot of Broncos fans there, like there always are when teams with good fan bases come to Vegas. They just haven't really established that home field advantage like they have when they go to LA, honestly. How does it play out Sunday?
Not a good sign when your star defensive end misses practice on a Thursday. Can't with the knee injury. So we'll see today. They'll get out on the field here in a little bit, and we'll have a better idea after practice. But he's I know that you'll have a fight on your hands. He'll probably come in here and strangle me for even talking about not playing. But at this stage of the season and that kind of an injury, or the body part that we're talking about, there's really no sense in risking him if there's any chance or there's any lingering issues right now. Put him in bubble wrap and save him for another day. So as of right now, being that it was a Thursday that he doesn't get out there on the field, that's probably a little worrisome if you're a Raider fan. But we'll have a better idea of it later today.
All right, Vinny, thanks for the time on short notice. Anybody can check Vinny out on X, formerly Twitter, at Vinny Bonsignore. Does a great job covering the Raiders there. And I will see you Sunday, and I'll buy you lunch in the press box.
Awesome, man. Thank you, guys. Have a good trip out here.
Thanks, Vinny.
Thanks.
Well, Chris, as we heard him, obviously give us a little bit of an update there on Max Crosby. Why don't we do this real quick before we get to predictions? Let's get our latest look at the injury report. So the latest Bell and Pollock injury report shows a couple of names that maybe you should be concerned, at least for this week, and maybe not so much, at least some of the digging I did. But DJ Jones, he's got something nagging, so he's likely not going to play is the feeling. But Zach Allen, who missed practice yesterday, it was my understanding they're not that concerned. I guess we'll see if he ultimately goes or if that was just a precautionary thing. Jonah Ellis's hamstring, though, is trending up. So all of those are good things. And then on the other side, you're looking at Max Crosby with the knee. But just give me one thought on not having DJ Jones Sunday because we can't expect. Oh, and then Pat Bryant was on the injury report Wednesday, gets nicked up and is limited Thursday. We'll see. Yeah. I don't think he's the biggest loss in the world, but no DJ Jones, what that does.
Well, the Broncos have a premium of D linemen to be able to rotate in, and even though losing DJ, he's the anchor in the run game, but that's why you paid Roach, right? Roach just got paid a nice deal. He should be able to step up and be able to do his job and the defense just stay afloat. So of course you're gonna miss guys, but the Broncos are loaded on the D line to where they can have a nice rotation regardless.
Yeah, no, Max Crosby really, really obviously can limit what we think the Raiders will be. Michael Mayer, the number 2 tight end who filled in when Bowers was banged up, he didn't practice. Jamal Adams, who's now a linebacker after being a safety, he didn't practice. So something to keep an eye on there. But I know that sometimes you've got your plan ready and things change. You get in a wreck, there's an injury, something occurs, you're going to need help. And there's nobody I trust more than our friends at Bell and Pollock. They're champions of the people for a reason. They'll fight for you and come up with a winning game plan. Call them today, 303-795-5900, or online, very simply, championsofthepeople.com. Chris, we got a few games of note in the NFL, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't look at some of these college games with the conference title games. Let's start in the Big 12, a conference that you and I are obviously partial to. BYU can play upset to Notre Dame, actually, but they're 11.5-point dogs in Big D there. Are you going to go to the game and watch Texas Tech and BYU? Is that how you're going to spend your morning?
No, but I got Texas Tech. Man. They got a nice D line, nice linebacker. I see them winning. They're too tough on defense right now.
Now, let's and I don't know the order in which David has these ready, but hopefully he does. I think the next game worth looking at, we can do it in chronological order. Georgia-Bama is a 1.5-point game with Georgia as the favorite, Bama the underdog. They're playing that game in Atlanta, of course, so it'll be basically a home game for both teams. So no huge crowd advantage because plenty of folks from Bama make their way a couple hours over to Atlanta. Do you think Georgia is kind of the team everyone's not talking about? Or does Alabama pull off the upset? Because I like Georgia to make a deep run.
Yeah, I got Georgia. I think they're just playing better at this time. Branch at the receiver position, he's playing better than Williams, so I'm going to go with Georgia.
And then the final of the three games to look at, because I don't really care about Duke and Virginia other than Duke can upset the playoff stuff. But Indiana, Ohio State, we talked about Alabama. Ty Simpson, I think, can help his draft cause. Obviously, we've likely got playoff games, especially if they win, if he plays well against Georgia. Same thing. Mendoza might be the number one pick, but if he can beat Ohio State, and they may see each other again in the playoff as well, but if he can beat Ohio State in this championship game in Indy, I think that'll be a heck of a statement. But Ohio State may be better than they were a year ago when they won a title. They're 5.5-point favorites. Any chance that Mendoza and the Hoosiers, who will kind of be playing more of a home game, an hour from campus, pull off the upset in Indy?
No chance. Ohio State's defense is loaded. No telling how many first rounders they'll have this year on their defense, from the safeties, corners, linebackers. D-line is monsters. And then you got to deal with those big boys at receiver. So I'm going to go with Ohio State. They're just too dominant this year. Even the rookie running back, Bo Jackson, is a playmaker. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Ohio State to remain undefeated.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against them. All right, let's jump to the NFL. We got what I thought was an entertaining game last night. We're not obviously looking at that. I thought the Cowboys would cover. They did not. And now they're on life support, 7% chance to make the playoffs, 54% for the Lions. But there's some interesting games. David, I'll just let you throw them up in order because you're probably going to do it chronologically. So this is an early game. Big Ben and the Steelers have been trending in the wrong direction. Have they lost 5 in a row? They haven't lost 5 in a row, have they? Have they dropped 5 straight, maybe? I heard someone say against a Ravens team coming off that Thursday night loss. I think the Ravens come out of this division. I kind of want to see the Bengals because I like the story, or our pal Shelby and the Browns, but I think the Ravens win this. How do you like this playing out in Baltimore?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ravens. I think the Ravens are gonna get going, and the Steelers are, they're talking about firing Tomlin. I think I'm pretty much done with them. They just let my guy Slay go, so I'm gonna go with the Ravens.
It's the second biggest line of the weekend, by the way, at 8.5. The only one bigger is Bucks over the Saints. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if the Ravens cover just because it's again a rivalry game. And if anybody can get his team to rally, it's Mike T. But if the Steelers and or Ravens both somehow miss the playoffs, even though those two coaches are entrenched and John Harbaugh's in the first year of a new deal, it's not going to blow our mind. Sometimes they're ready to make moves after you've had a guy for a decade and a half, despite their Super Bowl success. So that game, I think, is interesting for a lot of ways. All right, what's next, David? Bengals, Bills. Speaking of those Bengals and the Bills, who certainly look like if they have any chance of trying to catch the Pats, they have to win this game. Bengals coming off a huge win, and mathematically, they can take care of their own their own cause a bit in the division if the Ravens keep it close. So any chance the Bengals go in with Joe Burrow healthy now and getting Chase and Higgins out there together and they steal this win in Buffalo?
I'm going with the Bengals. I think T. Higgins, I seen him, he was questionable, but I seen him practice. So I think they're gonna be fully loaded. I'm gonna go with the Bengals to be able to get the upset. I just think they're too much on the offensive end. Right? The Jamar Chase, Higgins, what's the running back Brown?
Chase Brown, yeah.
He's been a problem too. So I think it's just
one of their tight ends. I think I did. Oh, Chris has, I think, little kids saying hi. Bengals are 5.5-point favorites in that one. So I like the story too. I think the Bengals end up going and pulling the upset. So they definitely are going to cover the 5.5 that they're getting. All right, David, what's next? Those are both early games. All good. Hey, that's what live. That's what it's like when you do it live. Okay, so this game is interesting for the most obvious reasons in that the Jags can now leapfrog the Colts, obviously, with the win in Jacksonville. They play each other twice. I think they end the season with each other, too. You know, we talked about that Colts schedule when they didn't help anybody out with the Chiefs last week or 2 weeks ago. But both teams, obviously, at 8-4. The Jags feel like they try to let teams win games. They certainly did with the Cardinals a couple of weeks ago, but they are 3-point favorites there in Florida. They're running the ball pretty well with the combo of Etienne and Tootin. Do the Colts get back on track after a couple tough losses, or are they continuing this slide? And if they fall out of the playoffs, does Shane Steichen, does he come in jeopardy of losing his job if they end up 8-9 or even 9-8 and miss the playoffs?
No, I don't think Steichen's going anywhere, especially with the offensive improvements they made. And they made a big jump this year. So I think he's pretty safe so far. But I got the Colts winning this game. I think they're going to go being able to run the ball. Taylor's going to get back going. Their defense, I got to see what's going on with Sauce Gardner. You know, he had a injury last week. So they were playing pretty solid with him. So, I'm going to go with the Colts. I'm going to go with Danny Dimes. I just can never trust Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. He hasn't proved it enough to me in the NFL yet.
The team with the number 1 seed in the NFL right now, or in the NFC rather, the Bears go to Lambeau. And obviously, if the Packers win, they jump ahead, and then they're in the driver's seat in the division. I don't know about tiebreakers with the Rams and all that. But I haven't checked the weather report right now, though. Green Bay coming off that Thanksgiving win in Detroit. They are 3.5-point favorites there at Lambeau. I'll look up the weather. You give me your thoughts on the game. But yeah. I would lean Packers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going with the Packers. I think Love, he played a good game last week. I think he just keeps balling. You know, Caleb Williams is doing his job. I love Ben Johnson. He's going to have their team prepared. But I'm going to go with the Packers like you.
Yeah, here's your weather report in Green Bay on Sunday, because it really does matter. Snowfall in the next 12 hours, not much, but there's some snow. Sunday, snow, only 15%. 66% chance of snow today. They'll get that cleared off. Guess what your high is Sunday in Green Bay?
20.
That's too high, buddy. 18 is the high. So I don't know who that helps. If Josh Jacobs is banged up with the way the Bears have been running the football, I can't just automatically give it to the home team. And obviously Ben Johnson's taken teams to Lambeau and won with Detroit the last couple of years. So I'm still with you. I'm going with the Packers at home. All right, just a couple more before we get out of here. The Sunday night game, which will come after the Broncos game, but we've got 3 division games that we're looking at here. Texans, Chiefs. Obviously the Texans trending up with what they did to the Bills, and then to go to Indy. They're starting to figure it out. CJ Stroud healthy, and the Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites there. This isn't must win, but if the Chiefs lose this, I don't see a path to them getting to the playoffs at 10-7, but maybe I'm wrong.
I got the Chiefs winning this game. I don't think they're going to let this one slide. They got to win this game, especially in the wild card race, to be able to have some, to be able to leapfrog their way in it. And with the AFC North, all those teams playing bad, the AFC South, those teams are kind of going in the wrong direction. I think this is a game the Chiefs have to win.
All right, so we'll jump now from Sunday night to Monday night. Don't know what version of your boy Justin Herbert we're going to see, only because he's banged up, but his hand may be broken in 3 spots, and he's maybe still going to tough it out. And then the Eagles, who obviously have had a tough couple of weeks now, they dropped 2 early, Broncos, Giants, and they've obviously dropped 2 the last couple of weeks with the Cowboys and then the Bears. The Chargers are 2.5-point underdogs at home, but we know it's not really a home field advantage. And anyone from Philly that's on this side of the country, they're going. I got one of my really good friends from back east. He's a Philly guy. He lives in LA. He'll be there, and his family's like flying out for it. So I'm going to pick the Eagles because I just don't think the Chargers can handle what the Eagles have in terms of personnel.
I'm gonna go with the Chargers. I'm gonna go with the Chargers winning. Being at home, I think Herbert and them know Fangio's system very well. He's always played pretty solid versus his scheme. I think they dice up the Eagles secondary right now. The Eagles secondary is pretty banged up. So I'm gonna go with the Chargers this week.
And then finally, game that I will be in attendance for, Broncos just 3.5-point favorites. And that's obviously based on their offense and the inconsistency or the fact that they've won 3 games by a total of 4 points in the last 3 weeks.
Right.
Nonetheless, those were all wins. I like the Broncos to not only cover, if before I leave town, because I don't want to bet it in Vegas, but I might on one of my apps bet it up because I think they're a touchdown better than the Raiders on Sunday, especially if Max Crosby doesn't play.
Well, we know Bowles and McGlinchey are praying that they don't see no Crosby, right? So they'll be extremely happy if Crosby doesn't play. That's gonna make their day way easier. But I'm definitely have to go with the Broncos 2-score. I think the Raiders are pretty much when you get around this time period, you're thinking you're getting ready to start setting up your plans.
1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Yeah, Cancun, man. So I think Raiders, especially if Crosby doesn't play, they're already like, we have no chance.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they cover. I think that they do win easily. I don't know if they're winning by 20, but a 10-point win. We talk 2 scores. Yeah, I think that it's in that realm. I think it probably is something in the 27-17 range, 27-16. That's kind of how I see it shaking out as well. Well, that does it though for us this week. Next week we'll be able to react to that, and then we got some playoff teams coming in with the Jags, the Packers, obviously the Chiefs fighting for their playoffs lives. It's going to be a fun stretch here in December, and we're going to break it down for you. And of course, catch Chris every Tuesday on We're the Harrises with his former Super Bowl champion teammate Ryan Harris and our pal Shelby Harris, still rocking with the Browns. So thanks to David, thanks to Mark, thanks to John for helping behind the scenes. Thank you for watching, and for Chris Harris Jr., I'm Brandon Krisztal. This has been Football Fridays.